All right, all right. Welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. Uh, for those who didn't watch the Thursday night game last night, Aaron Rodgers again proves that even though they didn't get him no weapons in the draft, they didn't get him no weapons at the trade deadline, that he utilized the minimal weapons he does have. Uh, you knew Green Bay was going to win. 34-17 wound up being the final score. I fell asleep midway through that game because at that point it was no point even watching it. He went off like 300 plus, 4 touchdowns. Devontae Adams was a beast in that game, 10 for like 173. And I don't know how Jones did as far as running, but I did see him break off a couple of runs here and there. Defense was decent, you could say, from what I watched of it. But again, Rodgers goes out and he proves to you, that he could stick it to the doubters and he could show the front office, hey, you don't want to get me weapons, then I'm going to win with what we got. But it's not getting them to a Super Bowl. It's just not. There's not enough on that team to get them to a Super Bowl. And they had that when Mike McCarthy was the coach. Now, how Mike McCarthy and Aaron Rodgers couldn't win more than one Super Bowl is beyond me. But they just didn't. And I don't see Aaron Rodgers winning one before his career ends. Not with the way this team's built. Um, Again, they got to go out to get. They got to get another receiver. Devontae Adams is spoken for. He is a number one receiver on that team. Um, Scandling's another guy who's decent. Lazar, I think, is the other guy. He's a decent guy, but these aren't. They're not the go-to guys at times. Um, Scandling will drop an easy catchable ball. But last night he made one hell of a route move, and he was just wide open 30 yards down the field, and Rodgers connects with him. Then there was two missed pass interference calls in this game, and they were both on Adams, and they were literally right after each other. The one where it was like fourth and inches, and instead of a QB sneak, Rodgers decides he's going to throw the ball. The guy's literally holding his hand. It rips his glove off, and they don't call it pass interference. Don't get me wrong. Adams caught it. Whatever. He still gets the first down. Then the next one is when he catches it in the end zone. As he was going into the end zone, hands all over the place. I mean, Adams still caught it, but still, those are things that happen right in front of the officials that don't get called. And again, that's what I'm talking about when it comes to accountability for bad officiating. Um, and speaking of accountability, finally, the Raiders' punishment came out. 500,000. Gruden gets banged for like another 150,000, and they lose a six-round draft pick in this year's upcoming draft. Um, some people feel it wasn't enough. Some feel it's justified. Me, I think it's fair, but I think that's what you should have did to Tennessee to set the tone. But now you set the tone. If you're going to be a multiple violator, this is what you're going to expect. 500,000. The coach for being a habitual, rule breaker is going to get another 150, 200, 250, whatever the fine's going to be. And you're going to lose. Don't get me wrong. You can complain that it's a six-round draft pick. I get it, but it hurts some teams when you can't find value with that six-round pick. Believe it or not. Um, then the Steelers got fined last night. Tomlin got fined, and this all being within the Raven game. Um, for him not wearing his mask the whole time, and for the Steelers not properly wearing masks on the sidelines or after game interactions. But the thing is that you implemented that after the fact, as far as wearing masks after game interactions and all that nonsense. So why are they being fined for it now? But whatever. I listen. I understand. You got to follow the protocol. There's going to be fines, people, and that's it. So then explain to me then, is Aaron Rodgers going to get fined? Because Aaron Rodgers was sitting on the sidelines countless times, not wearing a mask, and then magically when the camera pans on him after a while, I guess somebody told him, hey, put a mask on, and then he puts the mask on. But still, half the time I seen him on the sideline, he wasn't wearing a mask. So I'm sure there's going to be a fine for that. We'll wait and see. Because I know people are Raider fans and they're bitching. They're like, oh, blah, blah. Listen, your players went to an event. Didn't practice social distancing whatsoever. John Gruden's been warned countless times about wearing a mask on the sideline, as many other NFL head coaches. Some have switched from wearing masks to face shields, and honestly, that's the best route to go. That is the best route to go. If you're a coach, you got to stay in constant communication. Wearing that shield, I get it's annoying, but so is the mask. I get it, but you want to avoid paying $150,000 week in and week out. And speaking of that, Eric Ebron of the Steelers, and I love this one. He said, "Hey, where does all that fine money go?" We'd all love to know. Hey, Goodell, want to tell us where that fine money goes? Anytime you want to answer. You'll probably never get that answer. Nobody will ever know. Probably goes right in Goodell's pocket anyway. So then comes to and we'll switch off for a minute. The Mets sale was finally approved. They announced that today, and as they announced it, Brodie Van Wagenen decided to walk away from the GM spot. I think he knew the writing was on the wall for him, if you want me to be honest. That's just my speculation on it. Would Cohen have kept him? We don't know, because Van Wagenen made the decision for him and just walked away, as did Omar Minaya. So you're curious to see who they put in there. And, hey, congratulations. Now the Mets got a real owner. I'm still not saying he's going to spend a shit ton of money yet, but he will at some point. It's not going to be an overnight success, so get that out of your heads now. And then there was speaking of the Mets, because, all these sports channels and columns and whatnot, they like to do these, and I like to do it too, hypotheticals and all different trade scenarios, right? So this is one that's interesting. The Indians decide that before opening day they're going to trade Lindor because they're strapped for cash. Okay. So SNY decides to put out, would you include in a trade, now this is for the Mets, Dom Smith or Pete Alonso? Now, obviously, you're going to have to give more if you're going to get Lindor. Now, you're probably going to take on his deal, and you're probably going to have to you're probably going to have to work out arbitration with him, because he does become a free agent, I believe, at the end of the season coming up. So, I wouldn't trade Pete Alonso. This is what gets the deal done. And you're going to have to give up one of your pitchers for it. And I'm not saying DeGrom, so chill out. Chill out, because I don't think the Mets will ever trade him. They'll never trade him. Even though that's an easy contract to move. A lot easier than Stanton's. You're going to have to put Dom Smith in a package with Syndergaard and probably a AAA player and a draft pick. That, I think, gets it done. Because not only that, you're probably going to take on the rest of Lindor's contract for this year as Cleveland strapped. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to take on that contract, then if I'm the GM, whoever the GM's going to be, unless you're going to have Alderson broker this deal, hypothetical again, I'm Sandy Alderson, and I'm going to step into the GM role here. You call Cleveland, listen, we'll give you Dom Smith, and I know that's going to be a heartbreaker for some of you Mets fans that love the guy, but he plays first base, and Pete Alonso is your everyday first baseman. And if they're going to adopt the DH rule in the National League, Dom Smith pretty much would be like Stanton, where he would clog it, because that's where you would put him most of the time. And listen, Dom Smith's not a bad baseball player by any means, but if it gets you one of the best shortstops in the game to improve that defense and improve the offense, then that's what you do. Not to take away from Amed Rosario, but he's not Lindor. And maybe, and then the other hypothetical is you could put Dom Smith with Rosario in it, because then Cleveland gets a decent shortstop in return. But I think the icing on the cake is they're going to want a pitcher out of it, and Syndergaard's the piece that you're unfortunately going to have to move. Sucks to say, but that's about the only way it's going to get done. Unless they're willing to take Rosario, Dom Smith, a third-rounder, or a third-round draft pick, and a AAA player. But again, if you're going to take the contract, and you're going to pay Lindor's contract this year, and you're going to go through the arbitration with him and everything, then if I'm Sandy Alderson, it's Dom Smith, either Rosario or Syndergaard, and that's it. And that's it, because you're going to take on Cleveland's financial responsibility now. So you're not going to give up more than you really need to, right? which leads now to the Yankee side of things. What would the Yankees trade? Well, I haven't read any hypotheticals on that end. I didn't get a chance to today. But I'll give you some of mine. And one of them is, if you're going to get Lindor, then obviously this means that you're not going to re-sign DJ LeMahieu. Hal Steinbrenner came out. He says they want to be below the luxury tax. They really don't want to pay it no more. Listen, I get it, but you can get Lindor and still keep LeMahieu, and you might have to go over the luxury tax just a little bit. But this team's built to win now. So if Hal wants another couple of World Series before he decides to sell the team or do whatever he wants to do in the next 5 to 10 years, if you want Lindor at shortstop, you're going to have to trade, and part of the deal is going to be Frazier. Frazier's going to be the kicker in this, because he's proven himself over the course of last year. And again, yeah, Jim, it's a small sample size. Yeah, and listen, I agree with you. It's a small sample size, and I get it. But at the end of the day, Frazier's going to be that piece that Cashman may have to include if you're going to get one of the game's best shortstops. And with that, you're going to have to probably give up a pitcher. And the pitcher that I would probably throw in this deal, it's not going to be any of my starters, that's for sure. Not going to be any of the starters. I would probably throw in maybe a Loizaga in there with a Mike King, a second-round draft pick. But again, if your team is going to take on the rest of Lindor's contract, and I forget what he's owed, I think it's somewhere in the $18 to $20 million range, then you don't have to give up that much. But if Cleveland says, hey, you know what, we're going to pay him, but we want Frazier, and we want Loizaga, and we want Mike King, and say a second, third round draft pick, because the Yankees never really give up a first round draft pick. You might have to in this one, but if you can get away without it, then by all means. Because picture that infield, Yankees fans, with Urshela, okay? Urshela, Lindor, you move Gleyber back to second, and you start LeMahieu at first. Just picture that. And then, if you're a Yankee fan like myself, you're going to say, well, what about Luke Voit? I'm going to get to that. Because then, this is where you move Stanton to the Cubs, and you now get Yu Darvish, Jason Hayward, and Craig Kimbrell, right? Okay. You then alleviate the DH spot, which means Voit would DH, Judge could DH. Again, you'd have an open DH position where anybody can do it. And LeMahieu doesn't have to play first every day. And Gleyber Torres doesn't have to play second every day. And neither does Lindor. You could you could rotate it out. That's a problem most teams don't have, that the Yankees have a problem and that you want to have. So, if I'm the Yankees, I'm calling Cleveland like last night, even before the announcement was made, they were going to trade him and see what it's going to take. Even if you don't get him, you got to field the call. You got to see what it's going to take. And then you got to see what other teams are offering. And there's going to be somebody who takes him, and there's going to be somebody who overpays for him. But you got to be smart in this trade. You don't want to overpay, but you don't want to make your bid for him lower than the other team, but you don't want to overbid either. Okay? Now, the Mets have pieces to get Lindor, and I get Mets fans, you don't want to trade Syndergaard, but he may be, like Frazier, he could be the kicker in it to get Lindor. And I'm sorry, if I'm Cohen and I'm Sandy Alderson and whoever the GM is going to be, because if this move gets made, it may get made by Sandy Alderson. And Sandy Alderson's proven that he can make good deals at times. So, if it's Syndergaard, who do you want, Mets fans? Do you want Syndergaard, or do you want one of the best shortstops in the game? And you can say, well, we love Amed Rosario. Listen, don't fool me. You're not fooling me. You don't love Rosario when he can't hit. You don't love Rosario when he makes errant throws and can't field the ground ball and misjudges a ground ball. You don't love him then, okay? You only love him when he's hitting, and you only love him when he's fielding great. To me, that's what Cleveland's going to want, because they're going to have a hole at shortstop. They're going to want a shortstop in return. And I have a feeling in that situation, if the Yankees were to call him, they're going to want Gleyber Torres in the deal. And I'm sorry, dumb move if the Yankees do this. Because the Yankees traded Chapman to the Cubs, right? We all remember this. And still to this day, I'll tell you, and I tell everybody, Cashman had this deal made knowing he was getting Chapman back, and that deal was already worked out when this trade with the Cubs happened. Okay? We traded Chapman, we got Gleyber, and we got whatever else in return. Okay? Right? What happened after that World Series when the Cubs beat the Indians? What happened? Who re-signed? Chapman. Okay? You mean to tell me that Cashman made that move, and then 3-4 years later is going to trade the guy that he traded his best closer to get Francisco Lindor? I'm sorry, if I'm Cashman, I don't do it. Gleyber is going to be our Lindor. Okay? He's just going to be. I don't really think he's made for the shortstop positions. I think he played second base a lot better. But I'm not there every day. I'm not a scout for the Yankees. I don't see him practice, so I don't know what they see. I know what I see when he played second, and I know what I see when he plays shortstop, and they're polar opposites to me. You could tell me I'm wrong, and again, but this is my opinion. I just think he's a better second baseman than he was a shortstop. And again, you could put Gleyber back at second, and if you don't get Lindor, and you have to re-sign LeMahieu. I mean, the guy's up for AL MVP. The guy won a Silver Slugger last night, 2 years in a row, mind you, both being on the Yankees. So how do you not re-sign that? If you don't think he's going to put up consistent numbers, now I'm not saying he's going to bat 364 every year. Okay, he's not going to do that every year, but he's going to bat over 300 every year. You know, obviously assuming that there's no catastrophic injury that takes him out for a longer period of time. He's going to continuously, for the next 5 to 10 years, bat over 300. So I'm sorry, you re-sign him and you get him at what you got to get him at. I don't see LeMahieu being that guy who's like, well, I want $400 million. You know, I'm not saying he's in Trout territory, but definitely at least a 5-6 year, $150 million. Definitely he's worth that, because he's worth it because he could play every position in the infield. And I think he's even played in the outfield. I got to go back and check, but I'm pretty sure that he has. So that's a guy you got to keep. Now, if Cleveland, let's say in another hypothetical, Cleveland wants from the Yankees, let's say they call him, they say, listen, you know, we know you're interested in Lindor, but we want Urshela. And listen, I'm high up on Urshela, but if it gets you Lindor and you can put LeMahieu at third and Gleyber at second, you do it. Because again, the Yankees, like the Mets, do have pieces to move, but and you could say, well, LeMahieu's the problem, and where you're going to put him, where you're going to play him. That's a problem. That's a good problem to have. Like, again, not many teams have it. The Yankees have it, and I hear Yankees fans, listen, when LeMahieu was signed, originally, he wasn't supposed to start. But then injuries happened, and he got playing time. And Cashman looked like a friggin' genius. And don't get me wrong, at times Cashman's made some questionable signings and questionable trades, and we all get that. I know one of my buddies, I've known him for 30 years, never really high on Cashman. But I think he would even have to give credit where credit's due in getting LeMahieu and getting an Ottavino. You know, those were moves that, we had to make as far as free agent signings. We had to get them to bolster the bullpen and bolster the offense and bolster the defense. All right? Now, to get Lindor, you would keep LeMahieu at second. No, you have to put LeMahieu at third, and Gleyber would move to second, which means then Luke Voit would still stay at first. Then you could also move Stanton to Chicago, and you would get Yu Darvish and Hayward and Kimbrel. Now, I would take Hayward and flip him, is what I would do, because Hayward has been inconsistent for years now. And he only plays right field from what I've ever seen. So, I would flip him for a younger outfielder, or for international slot money, whatever it is, or maybe like a AAA player who's about to come up. I would do something along those lines. But could Hayward be successful in pinstripes? Probably could be. You know, listen, the Cubs are letting Lester walk, obviously. If I'm the Mets or the Yankees, I would take a flyer on him. Yeah, he's older, but if you could get a year or two out of him, and for not that much money. Yeah, I'm sorry, you at least entertain the possibility. But going back to Lindor, both Mets and Yankees organizations have the pieces to get him, but it's just a matter of who could afford to re-sign him. And this will prove if Cohen's going to spend money. Because if Cohen trades for him and then at the end of the season doesn't offer him a deal, then expect what you already got with the Wilpons, just with a different owner. But I don't see it. But again, I don't see him spending a ton of money right away. But if you can get Lindor, you got to make the move. Either it's the team in Queens or it's the team in the Bronx. Either which way, you got to make the move because you don't want to see him go to the Red Sox if you're a Yankee fan, or Tampa, or Toronto, or Baltimore. You don't, and if you're a Met fan, you don't want him going to the Nationals, the Phillies, the Braves, or the Marlins. You don't want to see that. So, if I'm Cashman, and I'm Cohen, and I'm Sandy Alderson, I'm calling Cleveland, seeing what it takes. And again, I know certain Mets fans are high on Dom Smith, and and I heard it all year. He doesn't get enough playing time. But again, to get one of the best shortstops in the game, you're gonna have to give up a pivotal piece that you may not want to, and that's on both sides. Either it's the Mets or the Yankees. One of them's gonna make that hard decision and get rid of a guy that may succeed with another team, or he may not. So you don't know that till you move the piece, whether it's gonna blow up in your face or it was one of the smartest moves you ever made. You're not gonna know. But you gotta entertain it. You can't be either team and sit on the sideline watching somebody else get better. Especially when the Mets haven't sniffed the World Series since 2015, and you say, well, Jim, it's been 5 years, and the Yankees last won 09. Hey, listen, I get it. Both teams are in a drought as far as a World Series appearance and championship. But, again, you're going to have to move a piece you don't want to move. And you could say, well, Jim, you're a Yankee fan. Wouldn't you want to see the Mets move Alonso? I think if you're the Mets and you move Alonso, you're stupid. Because Pete Alonso had an amazing rookie year. Amazing rookie year. This year was a bit off, and and I'll give it because it's 2020 and COVID and all the nonsense they had to deal with. But if you don't think in a regular full season, Pete Alonso isn't going to put up at least 40 plus, 120 RBIs, an on base percentage of say 900, you're freaking out of your mind. Again, but that if he stays healthy the whole year, he's going to put up monstrous numbers for you for the next 5 to 10 years. So, as a piece, I don't move. Pete Alonso, to me, even though I'm not a Met fan, has earned his spot, and that's not a piece I move. That's a piece let's put it this way: in a hypothetical world, and Pete Alonso was a Yankee, I wouldn't move him. I wouldn't move him. Now, with Stanton, there was other options where you can trade them, and of course they're all NL teams because if they're going to adopt the universal DH rule, and it's going to be in both leagues, a National League team's not going to trade for him if that's not in play. And somebody said, well, what if you kicked in Stanton in the Indian deal with Lindor? And I said, you must not read anything that's written or listen to anything that's said on sports talk radio or in sports podcasts or videos that like I do. Or that other people do, for that matter. They're strapped for cash. So obviously, they can't afford to pay Lindor. How are they going to afford to pay Stanton? They're asking teams to take on Lindor's $18 million to $20 million he's owed this year, which to the Yankees is nothing. And the way Mets fans make it seem, it'll be nothing to Cohen. Okay. But the Indians aren't going to pay Stanton his $218 million. So you can't kick him in the deal. Yankee fans would love to do it, but you can't do it. There's just too much money owed there to do it. That's why you have to trade him within the NL. Okay? And you're going to take back, in order to get rid of Stanton, you're going to have to eat part of his deal. So you're not really going to get much in return. And where you would get much in return with the Cubs is because you're going to have to take Yu Darvish's money. And you're going to have to take Kimbrel's money too. Hayward probably not paying that much. And that's why I'm saying to recoup some of that money, you could turn around and flip Hayward. And then some Yankee fans I know said, well, what if we flip Kimbrel with Hayward? wouldn't do that. I would see what Kimbrel could do in pinstripes coming out of the bullpen. If I'm the Mets, knowing in a hypothetical world that if you can't get Lindor and the Cubs were willing to trade Darvish, Hayward, and Kimbrel, and you're looking to bolster your starting pitching, Dom Smith will get you part of that deal. And so would a couple other pieces. And, and I talk to Mets fans a lot. And when they were shopping around the idea, because Mets fans do the same thing Yankees fans do, hypothetical trades and what's it going to take to get this guy, what's it going to take to get that guy. Listen, I'm going to tell you this right now. A guy I don't trade on the Mets is Michael Conforto, along with Alonso. Those guys there are the ones you build around. And in New York, even and I get it, and I'll probably get slammed by Yankees fans for this, but I don't trade Judge. I get it, Judge. He can't always stay healthy, but when he's healthy and he hits, he hits. I don't trade him, just like I don't trade a Severino, and I wouldn't trade Deivi Garcia. And same thing with the Mets. I would never trade DeGrom. I wouldn't do it. DeGrom's that guy he's going to be your prominent pitcher for the next, I would say, 5 years. Okay? Again, barring a major injury for the next 5 years, he will continue to do what he does best. But both teams gotta call Cleveland to see what it takes. You gotta see what other teams are offering. And again, I'm telling you, some team out there, regardless who the player is, overpays. They always do. And don't get the Mets have overpaid for guys back in the yesteryears, and even recently at times. And the Yankees have done it too. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, the Yankees have done it too. I mean, who remembers when we used to give up half the farm to get Jose Canseco or David Justice? Come on. Those are just minimal examples of how many times the Yankees have traded off, future stars and we've gotten guys that have been a little bit past their prime. But in this, you're not. But in this, with the Lindor situation, you're not really doing that. You're really trading youth for youth. But you're just trading somebody. You're just trading off pieces that you don't know yet. But it's going to get you what you already know now, and that's that Lindor is an excellent shortstop and can hit. We all know it. If you ever seen a Cleveland Indian game, whether they played against the Yankees, Red Sox, Brewers, whoever, you've seen it. Lindor is a threat in any team's lineup. So you got to see what's being offered. If you know that you may have to kick it up a notch, especially if it comes down to, let's say, on the Yankee side, Boston's willing to kick in like an extra draft pick, you're going to have to match it. You're going to have to match it. And the same thing with the Mets. If you know the Nationals are going to go balls deep to get Lindor, you're going to have to match what the Nationals are going to offer. Again, those are just hypotheticals and examples now. But again, you gotta make the call. You just gotta do it. You just gotta do it. I mean, listen, this time they're willing to actually trade him. See, they were gonna try to trade him over a year ago at the All-Star break, but then they decided not to. You gotta make the call. Field it. See what's gonna happen. The worst thing, you'll never know till you make the phone call. So again, you gotta make that call. It's not a hard thing. Cashman's got to be like, hey, listen, Cleveland, listen, we're willing to give you, and you got to go with a low ball offer first. And they're gonna be like, no, because you want to see what they're gonna want in return. Obviously, they're gonna want a shortstop in return, because you're gonna have to fill. You're gonna create a hole by trading Lindor unless they have a prospect that they're ready to bring up now. See, the Mets have a shortstop that you can trade. The Yankees, we don't have one you can trade that I would do it. I wouldn't trade Gleyber Torres. I just would not do it. You're gonna have to kick in some bullpen pitchers that don't handicap your trade partner. You're not gonna sit there and go, oh well, we'll give you Ottavino, and meanwhile we're paying Ottavino like 10 plus a year. You're not gonna do that. Because obviously Cleveland's shown you that they have financial hardships at this point. Because if they can't afford to pay Lindor, right there you could offer them low ball bullpen pitching as part of the deal. Just to sweeten it up a bit. The Mets got bullpen pieces that they can get rid of too. And again, whether the Mets find a GM today, tomorrow, 3 months from now, you gotta kick the wheels on this. And you know, and you can say, Jim, you know, Cohen just got it just became official. He's the owner. But you know what though? You got to start kicking the tires on it. Especially if Mets fans want to prove that they can become a better team than the Yankees. This is the start to it. You need to call ahead of Cashman and see what you can do. And then the Yankees, listen, everybody's going to find out who's offering what. GMs talk to other GMs, and, you know, everybody leaks something out. Somebody talks to some insider will always leak out what they overhear and you know, and tell so and so. So teams will find out what's being offered, you know, to Cleveland, and Cleveland's going to take the best deal that's best for Cleveland. And how can you not? But I think the Yankees or the Mets offer the best pieces, especially if Cleveland wants to get younger. And don't forget, Cleveland declined Santana's option, and Carlos Santana played first base, right? Okay. So if the Yankees threw Mike Ford in there, that fills another hole. Again, unless Cleveland's got a prospect that they want to bring up and play first base. But if you, and that's where Dom Smith would fit in with Cleveland because he plays first base. And so does Mike Ford. So I could see either one of those two from both sides being included in this deal for Lindor. I would hate to see Mike Ford leave, but he doesn't get enough plate appearances. He doesn't get enough time in the field. And in Cleveland, he would. And if it turns around that he is subpar at best in Cleveland, then Cashman made the smart move and let him go. But I just have the feeling on the Yankee side of it, Frazier's going to be the piece that's asked for. And I'm sorry for you Yankee fans that are not going to agree with me on this, but I make the deal. I put Frazier in. You're gonna say, well, then why didn't we do it with Garrett Cole then? Listen, I'm not Brian Cashman. I'm not in his head. I don't know, because I even said it then. You should have. If that's all it took to get one of the best pitchers in baseball, you friggin' do it. But Cashman thought high of Frazier, and you know, Frazier's had his up and downs. But you know, he's proven himself. And again, small sample size. I agree with you that say, like I'm saying, I agree with you. You know, it was only a 60-game season. He didn't do anything over the course of 162. Who knows what he would have done over the course of 162? Nobody knows. Nobody knows. But if you're going to beat the team on the other side in Queens, you're going to have to do it. And the same thing on the Mets side. If they say, hey, Syndergaard is the deal breaker, then Mets, you got to do it. And I'm not a Mets fan, but I know some Mets fans that would say, if that's what it's, that knowledgeable Mets fans are going to say, I don't want to see Syndergaard go, but if it's going to get me Francisco Lindor, then yeah, I do it. Because you have to, because you got one of the best shortstops in the game today. And as far as what he wants, as far as, you know, a new contract, I don't know. And that's where you're going to have to see how he produces for you. We all know that. Whether he goes to the Yankees, the Mets, or he goes to wherever. Okay? If he has a sucky year, then you have the advantage. Yeah, listen, I'm not going to give you a contract based on what you did for 3, 4, 5 years over in Cleveland. It's what you did for me this year. That's where you got to earn your contract. And that's in any sport. Doesn't matter what it is. When you're in a contract year, that's when you prove your value at its utter best. You know, some players have choked in that spot, and some, you know, have proven, hey, I'm worth more than what you're paying me, and they'll get an extension before the contract's up. And I think Lindor, whether he goes to the Yankees, the Mets, or wherever or whoever gets him, he's going to prove that he's worth what he wants. Again, not many teams are going to be able to afford to pay him. Some can, and some teams, like there's a Dodgers fan I know. He says, you know, well, I would trade for Lindor, but you don't have a need for Lindor in LA. You don't. Um, you know, I heard, you know, Angels fans would trade for him. But what are you giving up? What are you giving up for him? Can you even afford to pay him that you're paying Trout like almost $500 million? So, I think, listen, when it comes down to it, I think it's the Mets or the Yankees that get him. And I say it because I'm a Yankee fan. I think the Yankees wind up getting him, but you have to re-sign LeMahieu again. Um, you have to re-sign LeMahieu. If you let him go, and I said this in another video that they have him going to Toronto for like 4 years and 125 million from the Yankees. Listen, 5 years, 150. Get the damn checkbook out and write it. That's it. Because he's not gonna accept the qualifying offer. And then if he signs anywhere else, oh wow, you get a draft pick out of it. But a draft pick for me is not going to replace the numbers LeMahieu's going to put up on a day in, day out basis and a year in, year out basis. So you got to re-sign him, and you get Lindor. You can mark it down now. Yankees win the World Series next year. Simple as that. And you can tell me I'm nuts, and you tell me I'm insane, but listen. You get Lindor, and you could trade Stanton to the Cubs. Just picture that rotation, especially if you get the Yu Darvish you got last year. Just picture that. Cole, Darvish, Severino, Garcia. You re-sign Tanaka. And you're going to say, well, in other videos, Jim, you said you give Jordan Montgomery the shot. Yeah, and that's where you go to a six-man rotation. Can't hurt to try something new. And it gives everybody an extra day off that you're not putting all these miles on these guys' arms. Because look when we got CC. He already had mileage on that arm. We pretty much got damaged goods out of it. Because when CC started his career in Cleveland, he was pitching complete games and constantly. I think CC was the last of a complete game pitcher that can give you 9 innings and go 130 pitches. Listen, we didn't get a youthful CC Sabathia by any means. Do I ever knock that deal? No, I don't. Did CC pitch his ass off in New York? Yeah. Did CC have some crappy games? You bet your ass he did. But that's a move I'd make 100 times out of 100 times. And Lindor's one of those guys. You have to make that deal. Even if Cleveland says, you know what, we want Lindor, we're giving up Lindor, but Yankees, you know what it's going to take? Frazier and Montgomery. And let's say, hypothetically, we already have the Stanton deal done. And Stanton's in Chicago, we got Yu Darvish. And it would pain me to do it because I think Montgomery's got the pitching skill set to succeed in New York. But again, if that's what it's going to take, then that's what you got to do. If Cashman doesn't do it, and Lindor goes to the Mets and becomes this Hall of Fame player there, and the Mets are making the playoffs every year, and they win a World Series here and there, one or two throughout the course of Lindor's career in Queens. If I'm Cashman, I'm kicking myself in the ass. The same way the Mets are probably kicking themselves in the ass when they got rid of Travis d'Arnaud, who won a Silver Slugger. That's right, Travis d'Arnaud won a Silver Slugger. Because the Mets pretty much gave up on him. But also, too, and where the Mets did give up on him, sometimes players just thrive in different situations. They just do. Maybe Atlanta was just a better fit for him. Listen, I don't know. Not freaking Travis d'Arnaud. But all I know is this. He won a Silver Slugger. But was it a fluke, even though it was a 60-game season? See, we don't know what the schedule is going to be for next year. We don't know if it's going to be a full season. We don't know what the parameters are going to be. There's a lot of unknowns going into it. So, does d'Arnaud produce those same numbers to get him another Silver Slugger? Maybe then that's when I could say, I should actually retract it. Maybe then that's when the Mets will be kicking themselves in the ass because they gave up too soon on the guy. If he comes back to earth next year, then it's a smart move on the Mets' part. He really didn't do that much in Tampa. Pretty much Tampa got rid of him right away. As soon as they got him, he sucked for like 2-3 games. Up, you're going to Atlanta. And then all of a sudden, it was just... all of a sudden, he became like Johnny Bench at catcher. So, I really don't know. We'll have to wait and see on that one. And then speaking of Silver Sluggers, a whole bunch of guys want him. But Manny Machado in San Diego. I don't like his cocky attitude whatsoever. But the guy plays third base like no other. And he's great at the plate too. It's just I think it's his attitude that and the same thing with Fernando Tatis. And Fernando Tatis got a lot of backlash for unwritten rules of baseball because he hit a grand slam and they were up like 11-0 against Texas. Well, who remembers when Texas beat the ever living piss out of, I think it was the Cardinals, right? It was like 31-3 or whatever it was. Nobody bitched then. But because it happened to Texas, they had to complain, right? Tatis also won a Silver Slugger. And again, the kid's got a bright future, but he's got to chill out on the cockiness a bit. Just you just got to cut it out with that. Just play the game. And then like he got flack for stealing bases when they're up like 8-0. Listen, if you're not holding the guy first, I don't care if you're up. I don't care if you're up 8-0 or if you're up 3-0. No lead in baseball is ever safe. I don't care what you tell me. Hitting a grand slam up 11-0. Who knows in the next 2-3 innings that Texas doesn't come back and put 10-12 on you. Nobody knows. But people wanted to complain, and it really got you nowhere. But again, the players on San Diego, they need to calm down. And I get, they were the hot news thing now. They were actually a winning team this year. And I get it. But again, you got to calm down with that arrogance. Just calm it down, because one day that arrogance is going to come back and bite you in the ass. Other than that, we got college football tomorrow. The big game tomorrow is obviously Clemson versus Notre Dame. Thank God it starts like 7:30, so I'll be home in time to watch it. I think Notre Dame's going to win, but I don't think by any means it's going to be a blowout. I think it's going to be really close. Probably comes down to like a field goal. But we'll wait and see what happens. And then we got all the Sunday games. And the Steelers at 4:30 against the Cowboys. And it looks like they're going to go with, I think, that Garrett guy that I read up on. I think it's going to be him. And, listen, the Steelers are already going into this game. I think they're like a 9.5 to 13.5 point favorite. Somebody asked me today, would I bet them in the points? Yeah, I would. I don't think Dallas is really going to do anything. I think they're going to shut Zeke down. I think they're going to shut down the wide receiving core. I think TJ and Bud Dupree really go off. And we're going into it injured. We're without Olahu. Obviously, Cam Hayward now has been listed as questionable. But going into this game, I think I let Cam sit out. Heal up a little bit more, come back for the next game. Mike Hilton's questionable now. He's been out for a few weeks, but Cam Sutton's filled in well for him. So, again, if there's no need for Hilton to play, again, heal up, play the next game. We got more games to go. You don't want to lose a guy because you're playing in a game that you pretty much know you're going to win, and there's this catastrophic injury that screws you up. I think Spillane, again, is going to have a big game. I think this is the game that Alex Highsmith breaks out. He gets his first career sack, if not one, but two. You got a couple other. You got a good slate of games this week. So we'll have to wait and see. Wait and see what happens. But hopefully, come before Sunday Night Football, I do another video real quick, and I got that 8-0 feeling. I had that 7-0 feeling last week, and I can listen to my haters chirp a little bit more, and I can get all the other guys who've hated on my team for years giving me a congratulations on Facebook, Twitter, or wherever the hell. So, I'm going to go in now, and I'm going to do some research on some other stuff that I want to do for the next couple of videos that I'll put out. And, guys, keep watching. Subscribe. Again, any questions, don't hesitate to hit me up. And again, if you want to do a video of me, we could do a video debate wherever. I don't care. We could do it at a Starbucks, Dunkin' Donuts. Hell, we could do it in the middle of friggin' Route 112 right here over by me. Just hit me up and let me know. Till then, mask up, stay safe. Peace.